one of the things if you run an online newspaper is probably the heartbeat of what you do is the politics page, and there's lots of always lots of issues, etc. Lots of you can go to a council meeting, and whether it's a district council or a unitary council or a county council, there are at least 10 news items out there. They may not be the most interesting ones or whatever, but they're out there, and so you get a lot of contact with councillors a lot of the time. And I'm here, part of our video blog with, I'm trying to do this properly, with Councillor John Klempner, who is the leader of Harlow District Council. And just a couple of questions, John. When you contact with the press, what are you hoping for from the press? What type of relationship do you like to build up?
Well, I think hopefully it's about sort of genuine understanding of what's going on, what the issues are in Harlow. I mean, even as a small district council, we are just dealing with quite big issues that impact Harlow, whether it's planning the local plan and the Garden Town thing we've talked about very recently, but a whole raft of issues. So it's about hoping that we can have a genuine understanding that I'm not looking for just a sort of another mouthpiece of good news and waving the flag. I'm looking for some balance. I think often there's a tendency to focus on some of the bad news. That's certainly true of the national press. But in terms of locally, it's about having a genuine understanding of what the big issues in Harlow, what's going to affect the future of Harlow, and trying to get that rapport and balanced reporting.
The term, whether somebody's a trainee journalist or somebody who's just starting, working on their own, the term off the record, that's sacrosanct, isn't it? Can we just establish that?
No, absolutely. And I've genuinely had no issues. So clearly there are things where they're not finalised. There are sort of ideas that are being floated around and what have you. I'm usually very open. I do absolutely preface it with this is an off-the-record conversation about making sure that our local journalists in particular are informed about what's going on and what have you. And some of those things may become a news story soon or later. But it is really important because if it was felt that I couldn't have a frank conversation with members of the local press, then it would change the nature of the relationship completely.
And how hard is it? Things like, for example, you're the leader of Harlow Council. Unfortunately, in 2016, you had some very difficult stories to deal with, which we can only refer to, like the Bouncy Castle tragedy, the murder in the Stowe. How hard is it for you to sort of gauge what the right touch is and how the right statements to the press is and etc.? How hard is that? And who do you work with other people as well? Do you speak to your comms team and chief exec and?
Well, I have constant conversations with those people. I'm not one that has my speeches or whatever written by the comms team. They do often draft press releases, which I usually heavily amend. But look, for me, it's relatively straightforward because, and that's about my personality. So I'm not one given to sensationalism, as a politician. And there are some people around who might be. So for me, it's all about sort of making sure that things are taken in perspective. I mean, clearly you referred to the Stowe incident, which was the tragic death of Arik. But the national media coverage of that was quite frankly outrageous. But not just the national press coverage. I got a lot of pressure to condemn this vile racist attack and what have you. And I said, hang on a minute. There's a police investigation going on. This is not just me sort of hedging the issue. It's about, and clearly I had conversations with the police and the investigation team, so I probably knew quite a lot more than I was able to say. But even if that wasn't true, I wouldn't sort of be leaping on the bandwagon and what have you. And there have been lots of incidents like that. The incident we had with the Travellers going back 12 months or so ago.
I forgot what a list you had. It's quite a lot.
So the Stowe and what have you. So it's about getting some perspective and some balance, and that's how I tend to come across. So from that perspective, I'm not going to make sort of ridiculous jumping to conclusion statements to the press or anybody else, because that's just not. A, I don't think it's right, but B, it's just not my personality. So I think, and I think locally the coverage was a lot more balanced. Nationally, it was truly awful, and I did get a lot of pressure. So I got quite a lot of social media traffic from not the press, from just general people who either had been to Harlow in the past or whatever, saying it's outrageous you haven't condemned this, that you haven't and what have you. Well, I will absolutely condemn any actual racist incidents or intolerance and what have you in the strongest possible terms, and I have and will continue to do so. but this wasn't one, and let's keep this in perspective.
So what's your message? Somebody who's a young journalist, etc., or just starting out, so maybe want to start their own newspaper or whatever they want to do. What's your message when contacting, being in communication with councillors? Is create an open channel? And
yeah, I mean, I'm on a personal level, and I'm sure this is true of every other councillor. I'm more than happy to have a sit down and a chat. And I've done so with a number of sort of local journalists. And those chats may not generate a story, but develop a line of communication. Let's have an open conversation and dialogue. Respect the sort of off-the-record conversations, but that will mean that you might get a bit of insight into an actual story that's breaking. But when a story does break, you will have the background. You can tackle the story in an informed way. And I think again, not talking to you to do this, because one of the good examples, but it is about genuinely understanding what the context and the background is. So when you come to write a story, it isn't just a headline to generate clicks on a website or sell copy. And I think then you'll get the respect of both your readership as an authoritative source of news, but also of the people you're going to get news from. So in this context, we're talking about councillors and government officers.
brilliant. Thank you very much, John.